Hey guys, this is EckhartsLadder. Hello and welcome to another video. Today's upload will be a little bit different than normal. I'm still getting used to my wife going back to work. She's a nurse and we have a kid, so it means that I have a lot less time to work on videos. So instead of a fully edited thing today, I want to ramble on a topic that I've seen going around Twitter, and on screen you can see some footage from my Let's Play of Halo Combat Evolved that I did with Corey from Corey Loses and Corey's Datapad. So I'm just going to get it out of the way. I am worried about Halo Infinite, and because I'm worried about Halo Infinite, I am worried about Halo as a whole. 343, I think they've got a lot of really great people working for them. However, I don't think they've handled the Halo brand correctly. Halo 4, for me at least, was a really big disappointment. Halo 5 even more so, and the launch of the Master Chief Collection has been continually bungled. So Halo Infinite is really their last chance, I think, to get long-term fans back on board and to try to keep the Halo brand alive. Because let's be honest, Halo is not the video game franchise it used to be. The hype around Halo 3 and Halo Infinite could not be more dissimilar, even though they're both the third point in a trilogy, although it's unclear to me whether Infinite will be closing out the Reclaimer series. And just generally, I think it's clear that Halo is not the cultural juggernaut that it once was. Now, I think it's clear that 343 realizes this. They've definitely taken fan feedback to heart with, for example, the art style changes, but the game needs to be much better than its predecessors, and it has a lot that it needs to knock out of the park. And you might not realize this, but Halo Infinite is actually scheduled to come out this year. However, we've seen almost nothing. We got a sort of teaser for a new engine, one that showed off more of the potential story, but not really, but nothing gameplay wise, no actual in-engine gameplay footage in particular. And to be honest, that has me a little bit worried, because they're not only being quiet about gameplay, but also plot. Halo 6 or Halo Infinite really reminds me a lot of Star Wars Episode 9, the second entry in this trilogy, the Reclaimer Trilogy, which was Halo 5, was a really different direction, and it totally pivoted away from Halo 4, which a lot of people were at least okay with story-wise. That reminds me a lot of what The Last Jedi did with Episode 7, although Episode 7 was much more, I think, highly liked. Basically, the two trilogies start off with a setup, obviously, then a second entry, which kind of completely eliminates most of that. I guess Jewel Amdama / the Didact are sort of like the Snoke of Halo. Then this last episode, and I assume Halo Infinite may be the last, has to sort of wrap all of that up without having a whole lot to work off of. It's very clear that the plot of Halo 5 worked for almost nobody. It's even more criticized, I think, than The Last Jedi, which has a lot of people who really love it as much as people who hate it. So they're in the unenviable position of having to kind of wrap things up, or if there's going to be a Halo 7 as part of the Reclaimer Trilogy, get things back on track in a single game. And based on the writing we've had in the trilogy so far, I'm really not convinced that they can do so, especially because I think the care for the Halo story right now is even less than it was for Star Wars after Episode 8. I would say it's far less. And I think generally there's also less belief in 343. However, 343 has an even harder ask than just nailing the story, which they can maybe do, although I do think they've written themselves into a corner. They also have to bring back fans, as I was discussing, and also somehow appease those who have gotten used to the modern mechanics that have been involved in the newer Halo games. Things like sprint or aim down sight. Mechanics that some fans like myself personally do not want to see in Halo. So there's a real divide in the community, and they've got to find some way to patch that while also keeping the player base somewhat unified, which I think will be very difficult. You can change the art style, and that is a good start, but if the gameplay isn't there, then I think the real casual fans, and I don't mean fans who play the game casually, but maybe fans who only care about the multiplayer, won't be won back. And I mean, I think it's clear that we'll never return to Halo 2 or Halo 3 peak popularity status. I mean, there's just a lot more competition, and to be honest, I think a lot more really good multiplayer shooters now than there were then, but we want Halo 6 at least to be viable. We want there to be a real community. I would love to stream Halo 3 or 4 nights a week, and I'd like to get really good at it and have it be viable as part of my second channel, but right now, the game, Halo Guardians, is just dead. And what's more, although the reach numbers numbers for MCC had a good start, I don't think they've held up very well either. Right now, the current peak is only at about 7,000 players, although I definitely think that will improve once Halo 2 and Halo 3 are released. But all of these issues have sort of existed since the game was announced, and really since Halo 4 and 5 came out. So why am I making this video now? Why am I talking about being nervous now in particular? Well, I think it's just the total silence. As I said, Halo 6 is supposed to come out this year, and we know almost nothing about the game. Sure, there's some EU stuff that helps sort of lead into it, and we can kind of guess a little bit where the story's going, but besides for those teasers, we've got nothing. We've got no gameplay, we've got no E3 this year, and I just don't know when we're gonna see the game, and the fact that the silence is so deafening does have me a little bit concerned. And I also worry about how production time is being affected by the coronavirus. We know that video games at the best of times are very, very labor intensive and often, unfortunately, involve a lot of crunch time near the end of a game's development. Will that be possible now? I don't know. I do know from a couple of sources in the industry that Halo 6 might be the most expensive game of all time, however. Now, to me, that's a bit reassuring, because if Microsoft is putting that much money in a game, will they let it fail? Hard to say, especially where Halo is one of the best sellers of Microsoft consoles. But I think Microsoft has been funding the franchise really heavily as a sort of flagship franchise since its pure buyout from Bungie. So I really don't know how much this all changes. This could also be a situation where there's just too many chefs in the kitchen, and we have seen several relatively high-profile personnel within 343 leave, including Mary Olsen, who was the lead producer on Halo Infinite, Tim Longo, who was Halo Infinite's creative developer, and albeit much earlier, Dan Ayub, but that was in 2017 though. Now, admittedly, it's hard to read the games industry, especially if you're not inside of it, like I'm sure most of us are not, and I can't definitively say whether this is a good or a bad thing, but personally, I know that if I were some sort of high-level producer or executive on an upcoming video game, on probably the biggest Microsoft video game of all time, that I would not be leaving in the final year before development, and to me, that signals internal trouble. Now, I can't say that definitively, there's always arguments about that when these topics come up, but to me, it's not a big vote of confidence in the game when major devs leave. Although 343 says otherwise, to me it indicates that there's some sort of internal dilemma, and at the very least that someone else will have to step in who isn't as familiar with the role. The thing that's most concerning for me is that first Tim left, and then Mary was slotted in as lead campaign producer, I think was her official role, and now she's gone as well. Two people sort of occupying the same position leaving, I don't think is a very good sign. I will say I don't want to misinterpret the situation though, and Unishek, who is a 343 employee and a community manager, sort of indicates that they did have separate roles, although some articles have suggested that they kind of did similar duties. So take from that what you will. I'll link to the comment down in the description. Also, for further clarity, while Halo Guardians did show off gameplay over a year before launch, Halo 4 had its first gameplay reveal E3 of 2012, the same year that it was released. So it could very well just be that they're looking more towards Halo 4's marketing campaign than Halo Guardians, which I think would make sense. Also, to be completely fair, they've had a lot of time to work on Halo 6. Over 5 years, in fact, if it comes out in December. So they've had their time, they have their money. I think the studio does have the talent, but nonetheless, I can't help but be a little bit worried. Not only because I'm not super confident in what's come out so far, but because the expectations and the sort of necessary quality of this game are both so high. But that's just my opinion. Let me know. What do you think of Halo 6? How much would you like me to cover Halo Infinite on this channel? I'll probably be doing full gameplays and multiplayer sessions on my second channel, X2, when it does come out, but would you like me to look at news and stuff, sort of like my friend Hidden Xperia does, or would you like me to leave that to the professionals? I'll also link down to his channel in the description. Anyway guys, that's all I have for today. Until next time, have a good one, and may the Force be with you.